When it comes to the best biosecurity and biosafety protocols to help your business thrive during these challenging times of face masks, viruses, and gloves, schools, businesses, sports arenas, hotels, and even churches are turning to America's top COVID-19 experts.
Guarding is a solution that has the ability to change the way we fight COVID-19.
Hi, I'm Socrates Garrett, Chief Operating Officer for SRS Inc., the single source solution for biosecurity protocols. SRS will ensure that your business does not shut down.
What separates SRS from other companies? We understand that if you control your environment, you control the spread of COVID-19.
SRS, the one source solution.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride.
Hey, and welcome to BMA Radio Show. I am your host, Dr. J. Mr. Garrett is not here today, but we do have two awesome guests that I am excited about talking to today. We have Pastor James Hall, who is a good friend of mine. We've been doing some work together. And we also have Dr. Lane Rowland, an infectious disease specialist. So I am so excited to have this conversation. How you all doing today?
Super fantastic. How are you doing today in a great state of Mississippi?
Doing well, Dr. J. So happy to be with you.
All righty, good. So let me ask you this, Dr. Lane, how are we with COVID-19? I know, are we getting into the second wave? Have the second wave hit yet?
No, we're looking at the second wave. Probably it's going to be October, November, December. And it's going to be very bad for individuals because we're not going to just have the SARS-CoV virus in October, November, and December. We're also going to have the influenza. So people are going to have co-infection, the SARS-CoV virus, influenza A or B. And so it's going to be pretty dramatic in October, November, December, January. So the second wave is about 2 or 3 weeks away from now.
Oh, wow. So what advice do you have for us, especially people who are sending their kids back to school?
Well, I think the most important thing is that what we call situational awareness and making sure that the schools themselves have the best biosafety and biosecurity protocols to protect the individuals, i.e., 1, making sure they understand how to wear a mask, 2, how to wash their hands properly, making sure that the kids' nails are cut short, making sure that the janitorial services have the best, what we call surface disinfectant, which is ProGuardian, what we have at SRS, and making sure that the buildings are tested for the SARS-CoV virus, because a lot of people make the mistake that you can have the best biosafety and biosecurity protocols in the world. If you do not test that building and found out that there's SARS-CoV virus on the door handle, the bathroom, on the ATM machine, on boxes, on the salt shaker or pens, then you have a risk of getting the infection. So that's some of the biosafety security protocols that I recommend so people can stay safe in this next round of the second wave, because this is going to go on for a minimum of 2 years until the end of 2021, and then we might start seeing the daylight in 2022.
Well, I definitely want to bring Mr. Hull in this conversation. Before we went live on air, he was saying that he think he had COVID in January. So share with us a little bit about that, Mr. Hull.
Not only do I think I had COVID in January, I think Dr. Rowling actually confirmed that he thinks I may have too. And Doc, that brings up one of the things that Dr. J was saying, and the precautionary measures that you were bringing in. This thing, as serious as it is, and I take it very, very seriously, there are some very easy and applicable and accessible precautions that we can take in order to keep ourselves at least several degrees safer than just not taking it. For example, one of the reasons that it looks like this thing spread so quickly in the spring was that people weren't taking into account doorknobs, elevator buttons, and those kinds of items that they were touching and then touching their face and actually infecting themselves, just thinking that maybe it was something that somebody could breathe on you or sneeze on you, but actually it was being um, transmitted exponentially simply because of third-party contact. Does that sound about right?
Well,
What you
I think that's one part of it, but I think the most important part is that you guys had a lot of you folks out there thought this was a hoax. You thought this was a joke because your President Trump played it down. And so you got almost 200,000 people in body bags or in graves now because of the misinformation. And I've been telling like it's been from day one because I'm an infectious disease specialist. I'm the guy in the field. I'm the one with 6 degrees in this stuff and not somebody just jumped on a bandwagon. So to your point of understanding the transmission of diseases, the folks out there in Mississippi and Louisiana and Tennessee that are able to listen to the show, they need to understand one of the basic premise of understanding biosafety security protocols and how to protect yourself with biosafety protocols is to understand the transmission. And we have what we call 6 F's in our world of infectious diseases. As a biological warfare expert, we have feces as one way we transmit diseases. Flies, we have format, we have fingers, we have food, we have faces, and we have the bottom of people's shoes, which we call feet. And then we have also the R's, which is respiratory. And so people make this mistake thinking that this virus is only respiratory transmitted, but probably one of the biggest transmitter of this disease is fecal transmission, i.e. somebody's infected or asymptomatic with the COVID virus, a SARS-CoV virus, and they have the actual COVID-19 disease. They go in the bathroom, they use that toilet, they flush that toilet, and that feces becomes aerolized, spreads all over the bathroom. You're in there, you're touching things, you touch your face, you have it on the bottom of your shoes, you go to your house, and you wear them shoes in the house, transmitting that virus under the bottom of your shoes. So, and we know for a fact, this is no hoax, this is no summation, this is not a feel-good that the virus can live in feces for 35 days. I mean, I've been saying this for the last 6 months. Now people started to get on board with understanding that fecal transmission, hand contact, etc., is a very important part of the transmission. Absolute 150%. And that's based off of science and medicine and not off of how I feel.
Before we even went on, one of the things that Dr. J was alluding to was I was about to tell you that I'm just waiting for the antibodies test to come out because I am almost 100% positive that I'm going to show positive with the antibodies. I think part of the shortness of breath that I've been experiencing now stems directly from the fact that I contracted COVID and lived through it back in January. I have a relative in Topeka, Kansas. The whole household, I'm talking about my friend, the mother, her grandchild that was only 6 months old, and 2 girls that were 2 young women who were living with her. One was her former daughter-in-law. They all were they all were tested positive for the COVID virus. This was actually back in July, and they all survived it. They got the COVID virus. They all quarantined for about 14 days together in that one house, and they all pretty well survived it. Doc, I'm wondering, could there be several different strains, some stronger strains or other strains, or could it be that some people's physiological makeup is better able to handle the coronavirus than maybe other folk?
I don't believe there's a physical, genetic, selective strain to the coronavirus, this particular virus, the SARS-CoV virus. I think the problem is that it's a lack of information. I've been saying it, I speak to 1 million people a week. I said this back 6 months ago. I've said it on NPR. I've said it on the Rashad Ritchie show. I've said it on Derek Luke's show. All the shows I do, all the programs I do, all the educational thing. There was 40 plus strands back in April. This thing takes 2 days. In England, the cases are doubling every 9 days as we speak right now.
Wow.
It's not about understanding if there's mutation. It's the fact that you get mutation when you have RNA viruses. This is the largest RNA virus on the planet. Has a lot of immunogenic capability. It came from a bat that jumped into a human being. We call that accidental host spillage or spillover. And also the fact that this virus has been around for millions of years. This is not a new virus. The virus first case was in 1960 when we had the technology with electron microscopy to identify that virus in individuals in England. But this virus has been around for a long time. It's changing, mutating every 2 weeks. It's becoming more what we call effective fitness, the ability to affect individuals. And this virus is more lethal than influenza. It's more lethal than Ebola. This virus can affect your eyeballs, your nose, your tongue, your throat, your lungs, your kidneys, your heart, your pulmonary system, your cardiovascular system. It can affect every vessel in your body, and that's what we're seeing. This virus is a game changer, and this is the reality of what we have. That's why when we start talking about having tests and talking about having a vaccination, well, folks, they'll come up with a vaccination. It's not going to work. They can come up with different antibody tests, and there's inconsistency in the antibody tests because there's different strains. The East Coast strains of the SARS-CoV virus, which is a beta coronavirus, is different than the SARS-CoV beta coronavirus on the West Coast. It's different than what it is in Italy. It's different than what it is in Africa, Asia, what it is different in South America. Strains are part of the effective fitness. This is part of the immunogenic capabilities. You can get the virus yourself, like you said, you think you had it, and you can become reinfected and die from it. This is a capability. There is no long-lasting, what we have found, immunity, conferred immunity, antibodies, IgM or IgG. That doesn't happen with the coronavirus infection, folks, because guess what? There are 4 coronaviruses that are circulating in a population every year. You get it. I get it. Dr. J gets it. It's part of the alpha coronavirus. You know, we call it 229E, OC43, HUK1, NL63, normal. And you guess what? You get infected, reinfected every year. No conferred immunity. So you're right. Genetic serotypes are different. Chances of getting reinfected are very high.
Oh, wow. And you said it's 40 different mutations of
That
this
That was back, Dr. J, sorry about that, but yeah, that was back in April when I was talking about it. It was 40 plus mutations. Scandinavian, the Sweden, the German, the Europe strain is different than the Italy. And then what happens, you get a mix of these different coronaviruses, period. So there are 40 plus strains out there. And I would think most important, what people need to remember is that this virus is mutating every 2 weeks, i.e., and in England, the cases are doubling every 9 days. So when we get to our thing in October, November, December, if we get the real information, if the information is not dumbed down because of the political situation of the government, you're going to see the numbers are going to be, it's going to be outrageous in the United States.
How can they come up with a vaccine for so many different strands? Even though I'm not going to take the vaccine. How can they?
Me either, Dr. J. I'm glad you said that because I am not.
You know, I can tell people by their past, by their history. I know your history.
Yeah, I'm not taking the vaccine, but just because I understand because as a pathogenic virologist at the Heinrich Institute in Germany, and also as an expert in biological warfare, and a professor of infectious diseases and director of infectious diseases in the tropical medicine in Peru, and also on the COVID healthcare task force, and also on the healthcare task force for the Black AIDS Institute. I have a pretty good understanding of virology. And You folks, come up with a shot. It's not going to work. With HIV for 30 years, we spent a lot of money. There's no vaccine for HIV. There's no vaccine for malaria. There's no vaccine for dengue or chikungunya or Zika viruses. What makes you think that they're going to come up with a vaccine for this in a short amount of time? Let me give you some example about why people need to be very cautious. Because in 1952, they did Operation Warp Speed for the polio virus. Injected all the kids in America with polio, 20,000 of them dying, and they were paralyzed, put in iron lungs. We already know about the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. That's just a fact. They injected black people with the syphilis, and they studied them for 40 years. Babies came out with no eyeballs, no brains. And at the end of the day, they were using these black people to take their blood, their serum from their spinal cord and make assays around the world. So the assays, the tests for diagnosing with syphilis came on the bodies of black people, and the state of Alabama is still making billions of dollars off of that worldwide. 1972, they Operation Warp Speed again, came up with a vaccine for the swine flu. A lot of people died, shut the program down. I'm going to be the last person on this time when we talk about healthcare disparities. Me, my grandchildren, we're going to be on the last people in the back of the bus on this.
I hear you, Doc. Doc, I think it's interesting, Dr. J, that the Dr. Rowling would let us know that he has 6 various degrees in immunology and virology, and then he lowballs it by saying, I think I know something about virology. That's funny, Doc, but I get the message. I think you might know. Yeah, I think you might know a little something about virology. Yeah.
I know when people come back and people start getting into my lane, I don't know anything about education. I don't know anything about sociology or accounting. I don't even know how to be a pastor. But you get in my lane in infectious. And I've been in the jungles of Peru doing real world epidemics and treating people from everything from Ebola to dengue and chikungunya to children in the jungles. And I've been in Fort Detrick, Maryland. I have a top secret clearance. And I've been to Rocky Mountain, Montana, where the most biological secure place on the planet. I have not seen any of them folks that think there's somebody. I haven't seen them with me at these programs. So
I hear you.
I don't know where they got their training from, but they haven't been in my role as a military commander too.
I hear you. Doc, are we beyond it being a proven fact that this disease is much more deadly to people of color? Are we beyond that, or is that something that still needs to be discussed?
I think we're still coming up with that, but I think on the factual part, when we look at this SARS-CoV virus, which is a beta coronavirus, this virus has what we call an R0 number or reproductive number about 3 to 10. Ebola has an R0 number of 1. Measles has an R0 number of 12. HIV 3, influenza 1.5. What does that mean on the big picture? One person has measles, they can infect 12 people. It's aerosol, respiratory. Somebody has Ebola, which will kill you 99.9% of the time. One person gets Ebola, they can only infect one person because it's blood-to-blood transmission. Influenza is 1.5. For every person that gets influenza, they can infect 1.5 people. HIV 3, one person gets HIV, they can infect 3 people if they have body contact, secretion stuff. Well, guess what, folks? The SARS-CoV number 2 has an R0 number of 3.5 up to 10, depending on the density. What does that mean? For every one person that has SARS, you can infect 3 people. In a nursing home, it can infect 10 people. And it goes wildfire. So for every one person that affects 3.5 people, you do 1,000 people, that's 3,000 people that are infected with that virus. Automatically, 30,000 people are affected with that virus. So that tells you what the numbers can be in the reality. 3,000 people, for that many people. So this is a wildfire, a game changer. And I'm telling folks, the people believe in the Bible and God, the 4 horsemen are going to be riding hard. So you better get ready and protect yourself the best way you can. And this is not a joke. I tell people, I don't care if you're Democratic, Republican, whatever. I mean, black, white, rich, Jew, whatever the case is, body bags all zip up the same way.
Wow.
Sound.
And Doc, you were saying when you first started to explain this to us, you were talking about education and information. Is that another reason that people of color are becoming much more susceptible, is because we are really not either being availed to or availing ourselves to the information and education that surrounds this disease?
Yes, absolutely correct about that. That's one reason why they recruited me for the Black COVID Healthcare Congressional Task Force. They came looking for me. I was shocked that they even called me, but they're looking at my background, et cetera, based off of my international experience, my military training, the papers I've published, the institution. And you're absolutely right, because what happens is that we have to have what they told me, they got to have people look like me, that like grits, that have Afro sheen on their hair, et cetera, to be able to talk to people, our people, because I'm from Louisiana. I know about catfish and buffalo fish and grits and French fries and 7-Up porch. I know about cicadas talking in the nighttime versus somebody on CNN or Fox that have never been in your neighborhood. They don't look like you, they don't smell like you, and they cannot relate to you. So I look like you, you're my people. I've been discriminated by white people. I understand the reality. So they got me to be able to talk. And so the biggest problem that we have is that we do not have enough people like me talking to our people, boots on the ground, that can relay and talk that lingo. Big Mama used to say, you got to hear from people that look like you, Chocolate.
Yeah.
So the story came out, I think yesterday, that a recording of President Trump saying he knew more about this virus than he let us know publicly. And they actually caught him in a lie with him saying that it's like the flu virus. What are your thoughts about President Trump lying to the American people?
What can you actually say? You can talk to every family member that has somebody that's died, that has gotten infected, and people don't realize. I've seen a couple of patients that have had, they've been admitted in the hospital, recovered from the hospital, but they still have all the rehabilitation. It's going to be a year and a half. So you tell me, I'm still waiting for somebody to tell the truth. But really, they have 190, and that number's wrong. You know that number's wrong because they've already said they got Trump people in the CDC downplaying the numbers and making the reports less. So you might as well go and factor that, add another, we say 190,000 people dead, really probably 250,000. 6 million people infected, that's a lot. Probably 7 million people affected. You saw what them fools did in Florida, the governor of Florida and Texas talking about their constitutional rights, and the body bags are still filling up. So that tells you they took something apolitical, put it into my world of virology, infectious diseases, and made it ugly. So their people lied. So they're the ones that have really, truly blood on their hands. Everybody want to talk about 9/11, 3,000 people, hell, 200,000 Americans are dead. And everybody's had somebody in their families affected with the disease. I know people that have died from, I had 22 of my colleagues that are doctors that are dead. They're not coming back. They left wives and children. These guys were infectious disease specialists. You can't replace that amount of education because of people's stupidity. And so he said, bad. I was right. Period. End of story. There's nothing to talk about.
Well, one of my students, Mr. Marquise Hunt, he said that we are dealing with two pandemics, COVID-19 and racism. He said that racism is a public health concern. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, he's wrong. This is not a pandemic anymore. This virus is what we call an endemic. This virus is here to stay. This virus is not going to magically go away in the summertime. We know the cases went up in the summertime. This virus does not recognize fall, winter, springtime, whatever the case. This virus is going to be full speed ahead. Absolutely, racism's always been here. We call it institutionalized racism. I hate to be that way. I hate to, because I'm a doctor. I believe in humanity. I believe in caring for people. But it's very hard to try to stay on that type of level when you know that the statistics and articles in the Journal of Medicine, JAMA, and Lancer are talking about if you have a black baby treated by a white doctor, that black baby has a 3 times likely chance of dying. So you can imagine if white doctors are that recalcitrant on treating black babies with a 3 times mortality rate higher than white babies, what you can imagine what happens to a black elderly person or a black young person or a black female that's pregnant and stuff. So institutional racism, absolutely. Is it a disease? Absolutely. You cannot tell me that they have white people out there with lynching people in Mississippi, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And these same folks that profess that they love God were eating pie and eating fried chicken on Sunday after doing a barbecue roast on people. And the great state of Mississippi were executing 11-year-old black boys in electric chairs. And we can talk about Emmett Till. So I don't want to go there because I am a God-fearing individual. I'm the guy that carries people's cross for God. I put babies in the body bags in the jungles of Peru. I understand death. I've heard mothers cry about their babies and stuff. So do not come in my face, white people, and talk to me about moral compass. Because Exactly.
But Doc, I gotta jump in here and say that as a man of faith, and as a man who represents the body, the Academy of Faith, I have to say that I believe that there is a certain cosmic timing regarding how racism, institutional racism, has floated to the top. At the same time, our attention has been levied toward this thing called COVID. I don't think that this was a timing accident. I think that from the cosmic forces of this world, I believe that there's a reason that we are being faced with this endemic called COVID-19 and this pandemic called institutional racism at the same time. I think it's some kind of weird cosmic timing to have us to focus on both at the same time. And I think that it's highly likely that it's because of COVID to some degree that we'll be able to make some inroads in defeating racism.
Well, Pastor, I agree with you because I'm a person, I believe in faith. And the faith is the knowing of the unseen or believing in unseen. But the reality is that what this SARS-CoV virus has done, we already have systemic racism. We have it all over the world. In Peru, for example, where I've worked for 20 years, that system has collapsed, period. End of story. There was already fraud. There was already systemic racism. Now there's no answer because what's happened is that the SARS-CoV endemic is pulled the onion. It's opened up the onion. You see the insides of what we have. You cannot tell me that a 9-year-old black girl goes to a hospital in Florida, tell her to go home, and she dies. why didn't they were effective on their treatment? You cannot tell me that when in Mississippi, when they were doing what we call Mississippi epidepmies, cutting out black women's uterus to sterilize them in Mississippi in the name of science, the name of medicine, don't tell me about that. That makes me want to slap you.
Right.
Okay, Doc. I'm
That-
sure I'm glad we on telecommunication.
You know, Lulu,
Turn over tables.
Yeah, man. I don't want to be sitting across the table from you right now.
yeah, who was it? Lulu Hammer, Fannie Mae Hammer.
Fannie Lou.
Fannie Lou Hamer.
They pulled her, and they did a lot of black women like that in the name of science and medicine. So don't get in my face talking about ethics and stuff, because I will spit in your face, because you're lying. You're hiding the reality of it. That's reality. Don't tell me that these white people that are more smarter than black people. I got 6 degrees. 2 + 2 is 4. Don't tell me about education, because I would definitely spit in your eye. Period. End of story. I got 2 doctorate degrees, masters, 2 BSs, and a minor in military science. So don't play that black-white stuff about education, because we already know most of these white people are probably doctors, just like them white boys in LA, probably paid to get in medical school. Have somebody else take their exam for them.
Yep.
So what are we talking about? And when you have to compete on the same level, most of the time they can't do it. And that's just reality. And this is me as a black person, military officer, scientist, surgeon, what I've gone through in my black American life experience. I'm not an African American, I'm a black American. I don't know nothing about no damn Africa, but I do know what the black American experience is. And I played the game, smile, and we did the little Jew dance and stuff. But we all know the reality, folks. The reality.
You know it, and I've got to agree with you on 2 very specific levels. One level is certainly when it comes to where we are numerically on the spectrum of people who are able to deal. In other words, if we're talking anything from accounting all the way to medicine, all the way to law enforcement, I don't believe in quotas. And the reason I don't believe in quotas is because I'm arrogant enough to believe that if people are chosen based only on merit, we wouldn't have to just rely on 2 out of every 10, or the quota says 3 out of every 10. I'm arrogant enough to believe that because of our ability to deal, we would have 7 out of every 10 slots, or 8 out of every 10 slots. And all of those slots would have been achieved based on merit and intellect. So I agree with you on that one level. And on the other level, I totally agree with you, is that at some point we've got to come to the reckoning that the history that we have been taught is not accurate in any way. I mean, in any way. Go ahead.
Before Doc answered that, I teach education, evolution of education.
Gotcha.
The first school was created in 1635, the Boston Latin School for boys, for wealthy white males. And right after that, you had Harvard. And that's why people always talk about Harvard. So it was hundreds of years before Black people was allowed to even be educated. At the state of South Carolina, the Negro Act of 1740 made it illegal for us to read and write, gather in large crowds, grow our own food, everything that it takes to be a sustained citizen. Like, this thing is systemic.
And as a people, Doc, the reason that we are so proud of folk like you, that really doesn't have as much to do with the fact that you are a specialist in your field, as much as, for me, you are able to speak of your experience as a Black person, not as an educated Black person, but as a Black person who knows and understands what it means to be Black. And to Dr. J's point, I tell people all the time, as a people, we've only been able to read since the 50s. And that's for real.
My grandmother couldn't read, from the state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
My mother used to have to write her letters for her. My Black grandmother, Victoria Boston, who used to chew snuff, and y'all know it.
Yes, sir. I knew a lot of old ladies who did snuff.
The medication that the white doctor in Oakdale, Louisiana was giving her, they probably experiment on her.
Yeah.
And I want to be the bad bearer of bad news. I'm talking about reality. And the bottom line, at the end of the day, our Black folks, we have to be educated on the reality. Before you let somebody inject something to you, you make sure they got injected.
Yes.
You make sure Trump's and Bill Gates and all their family and grandchildren are injected. And then we're going to wait a year. And then they give people like me the scientific papers, and I can see what the results are. I already know what the results are going to be. And that's just the reality. I don't want to play sadness, but this is the experience I've had as a Black surgeon, board certified, infectious disease guy, military trained, Army scholarships. People call me nigga in the military. I've been called nigga.
I was there, Doc, for 11 years.
When I was 5 years old, they said white teachers told me I was retarded. I've already gone through this stuff. My children's lives are a lot better because I can pass on the information to them to open the door. So my responsibility in this SARS-CoV pandemic, which is endemic, if you don't listen to what I'm telling you, I promise you what's going to happen. I've been brought on the money since when I do this stuff. Now you know your government was lying to you. So what do you say about that? Won't you criticize him? Because he's killed a lot of folks in nursing homes, Black folks in Albany, Georgia, Mississippi, Jackson, Lexington, Shreveport, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Chicago, New York. We can talk Miami, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina. That is a lie, the biggest lie in history, because it killed a lot of people unnecessary.
So here I am, a staff sergeant in the United States Army at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I am the news editor. I am the editor of the news section. We had 4 sections. Right. I am the editor of the news section. I get a fellow named Carl Rankin, Private PV1 Carl Rankin from Kentucky comes in. They introduce Carl to me as his section chief, and standing with the captain, the public affairs officer, standing with 2 E5s, I'm in E6, and maybe one other soldier that's standing around. Carl looks at me and says, "I ain't working for no nigger." And this is in the United States Army, Doc. So and they let him get away with it.
Let me tell you, Pastor James, I am 5th generation military. My grandfather, Cam Boston, served in World War I, honorable discharge. World War II, my daddy, my uncles, my son's a 2nd lieutenant. We're military people. And that has been the best institutional for this thing. When I hear people talk about racism and talking about this and stuff, I look at my wife, who's Jewish. Her grandfather died in World War II and left her father, which was her grandmother, with these 2 babies by herself. So when people start talking about racism, they try to military in there. Well, that's where you make your mistake at, because people paid the ultimate sacrifice in the military. So you can imagine just looking at my wife's, grandmother, her husband, pilot, World War II, never found this body. What traumatic thing that family went through.
Yeah.
Look at what my dad driving in Vietnam. I remember as a kid, we couldn't stay in hotels in Mississippi back in the 60s and stuff, but my dad was fighting in Vietnam. I look at myself, a product of the military, trained, etc., the stuff I went through. And then we talk about it's supposed to be better. So when we start talking about the SARS-CoV virus, and what I love about viruses is that viruses don't discriminate. That's why I love them. They don't care if you're black, white, you can be Jewish, Catholic, whatever. This body bags all zip up the same way. And the reality, folks, is that my responsibility is to make sure I give people, all people, but more importantly, to give socially disadvantaged people the information so they can survive in this new pandemic. Because everybody really, I'm gonna keep it real. Can I keep it? Y'all want the Dr. Rowling version or you want the Mickey Mouse version, Dr. J? Tell me right now.
We want the Dr. Rowling version.
Because most of you guys probably thought my black infectious disease person that's living in the jungles, doing clinics, y'all probably thought I was full of shit back in March. I guarantee you, none of you folks laughing. None of you folks are laughing now, period. Because you thought that the white guy, the authoritarian Trump, was an expert. Well, this fool, when did he get a degree in virology? When did he get a degree in infectious diseases? What sacrifice has he made for this country besides having a heel spur, a draft dodger from Vietnam? I don't care what people say. You can, when you start talking about the military, I have a problem with that because the military has made me what I am. My family's has sacrificed, they've served, and I look at what you can imagine, just what my wife family went through when her father gets, grandfather gets killed and, shot down, never found the body. He's not a coward. So I'm just saying, I don't work. It got all mixed up. When I was looking at viruses and studying diseases in med school, in graduate school, and my degree in microbiology and chemistry, and my first microscope when I was 6 years old, I loved the organisms of the unseen. What happened? How to get political? And now we look at the reality, people are losing their homes, they're losing their life, people have psychological problems because of the stress, because they don't know what tomorrow is. I had a guy today on my Facebook that I've known for 35 years tell me, he's talking about, I'm going to unblock you because you're I can't handle what you're telling people. And so what I did for him, I blocked him. So what am I supposed to do? Lie about it? So that's not going to happen. I'm too old for that now.
No, but see, the thing about it is, and this is something that I do believe that Dr. J readily understands because he teaches it is. Doc, there's a segment, and I know you're frustrated about it, but there's a segment in this country now, they don't have anywhere else to go. The only place they can go is to a political corner. The truth has been told. The bandages have been ripped off. The lies in this country have been exposed. The lies in this country have been told. So the only thing a group of folk can do is to take a scientific endeavor like the COVID and make it political. That's the only place that a lot of folk in this country can go now is to a political corner. It's not even ideology anymore. They don't even have an ideology. It's all political because this country is based on the majority rule. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to come up with a majority. They're trying to patchwork a majority, Doc.
Well, Pastor, you're a pastor. You have have the faith in God. You represent God, and I'll throw that stuff out there. Let's look at just Jerry Falwell, this freak. So-called whatever the hell they call themselves. I mean, they should all burn up because that's there. But this is the fools that are out there talking about not wearing a mask, not washing their hands. This is a hoax, etc. Hey, you know what? Farwell, he's a footnote in history.
Yes.
Period. wife up there having sex with the pool boy. Get out of here, folks. What kind of rally are you talking about? How are you going to spend that? You can't.
You can't. Doc, we aren't hearing you.
Yeah. She's probably in shock.
She's talking, but she's not. We are not hearing her for some reason.
Yeah.
But you know, Doc, one of the things that I am so grateful for, and you really kind of said it. In fact, you kind of bragged on it a little bit, which I'm cool with too. You are a Black man, and you're speaking from the Black experience, and you are doing it in order to protect Black people. And I just think that's a beautiful combination right there. Thank you so much. You are unabashedly and unashamedly Black. I like that.
Well, hey, you know what? When I die and check out of here, I'm gonna still be Black.
Yeah.
This is just my experience. You know, I mean, I'm a very lovely individual. I love humanity. I remember being in 8th grade, and I remember I had a kid named Alan Ziegler, and the white kids were throwing rocks at this guy because he was tall, kind of goofy, and you can imagine being hit in the head with a rock in the 8th grade. And what I did was I went over there and I beat everybody's butt for him. I don't like bullies. I don't like viruses. To me, are bullies. You know, people like that are bullies. I mean, you look at some of these white guys, they want to be up on a Black girl in Idaho. I sure don't see them on the south side of Chicago. You want a Black butt? Just go to the Black Belt, Alabama. You can get all the Black butt you want. But they don't want none of that. So they're a bunch of cowards anyway. And so my responsibility is to make sure I try to give people the most up-to-date information based off of science and medicine and reality of it. And people can like it or not like it, but I can promise you, if you don't listen to me, come December, January 1st, it's going to be 500,000 people going to be dying in America. We're not talking about worldwide. We're talking about specifically here in the United States, period.
So, Doc,
yes,
we have a lot of school districts who have opened their doors physically, allowing students to come into the classroom. Do you think it's safe for schools to be open during this?
Schools, we have opened up, SRS, we've opened up school systems in North Carolina, Lexington, Taylorsville. We're talking about Denver, Colorado, Jackson, Mississippi. We're talking about reality. We're not talking about some theoretical, I got a feeling, but we've already put this to practical application. I would tell all the people out there in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Tennessee, your kids can go back to school if they have the best biosafety security protocols that are developed by guys like us that are really infectious disease guys. I.e., your kids can go back to school if they test that building and make sure that it's SARS-CoV free. You have to be able to test the building. You have to have people understanding how to wash their hands and teaching kids how to wash their hands and cut their nails. Why masks are a priority? It's part of the new fashion that's going to be around for the next 2 years. Absolutely 150%. You have to understand, folks, that there are ways that diseases are transmitted, i.e. the under the bottom of your shoes into a building. The virus is carried on the bottom of your shoes, i.e. there are 6 F's that we have in infectious diseases. I want your folks out there to write these down. You have food, you have feces, you have flies, you have formite, you have face, you have fingers, and you have the big R, which is respiratory. If people understand these 6 F's in our infectious disease world, and they understand respiratory, it's almost impractical for you to get infected, i.e. a formite, anything that goes in that school building, in that nursing home, needs to be sprayed down with Proguardium. Absolutely. You have to spray it because the virus can live on packages. I know you Black folks down in Mississippi, y'all love y'all fried chicken. Y'all probably go to Piggly Wiggly's. Guess what? That virus can be frozen in that chicken wings.
Oh, wow.
You have to cook your food thoroughly. Wash the outside of your package or spray it down with Proguardian, which is a hypochlorous acid solution. You folks out there that believe in this so-called Clorox and chlorine, while do it over time, you will get lung cancer. Lysol is a pesticide. Proguardian, which is hypochlorous, is a natural organic product. It's what we use in our biodecontamination unit. This is the type of stuff you have to have the information to make good decisions. Period. End of story. If you don't have that, how can you open up a school? Because when we tested the schools in North Carolina, we found the SARS-CoV virus on the vacuum cleaner handle.
So you're saying testing the people is not enough. You have to test the premises.
You have to test the premises, because guess what, folks? That virus, we found it on vacuum cleaners, we found it on keyboards, door handles, and particularly we found it in the bathroom, because that virus can live in the feces for 35 days. When you flush that, it becomes aerolized. So you have to test the facilities, know that the SARS virus is in there or not in there. And then what you do, then you bring your biosafety security protocols. You bring how to disinfect, train your people, how to train your people, your sanitation crew, and certify them in the COVID-19, or what we call the SARS-CoV, understanding how to treat the SARS-CoV virus, because cleaning is done. Because if you go in there and you clean and you're using a regular old product, you can spread that virus. And there's no product out there that I know of, technology-wise, I haven't seen it yet, that have been actually tested against the SARS-CoV virus like Proguardian has. And that's a natural organic green product, period. You're finding your contact solution, wound care, we use it on fruits and vegetables, etc. That is very important to make sure you
So,
understand.
Dr. Rowling, you brought up a very interesting point. What you're saying is you can take a whole class of 8th graders or 5th graders who are COVID-free. You can put them in an environment in the school that's not COVID-free, and half of them could return home that afternoon and take what was a COVID-free home to a COVID-infested home simply by not testing the building.
Absolutely. Let me give you an example. I was just talking to the school district in Texas, Dr. Nivens, who's a superintendent, and they had to shut down their school 2 days ago because 3 students ended up affected 180 middle school students. That is shut it down because they weren't following the protocols. They didn't have the testing of the building. They didn't have the mask. They didn't understand the environment. And for a person like me that's been in this business for 30 years, dealing with some of the most lethal pathogens in the world, I've never got infected because I understand biosafety security protocols. What is the best technology? How do we wash our hands with real stuff? What are we doing for the bottom of our shoes? Understanding the masks are important. When I get on an airplane, I wear a particular 3M mask, the best. Flying all over the country now. I'm not going to get infected because I know what I'm doing. And so we teach you the basic premises and understanding what infectious disease is and how it's transmitted.
So for those who are just tuning in, we are live with Pastor James Hull as well as Dr. Lane Rowland. And we have a question from Carol Ann Elmore White. She said, Dr. J, please ask about AC filters in small apartments. I guess you want to know.
Well, I understand.
Refiltering of the air. That's what's going on.
We have at SRS, we have some air filtration units that I recommend that we use the technology. And I believe in October, November, December, I think everybody in America and the world should have an air filtration unit in their house because of the presence of influenza, which is airborne. Also the SARS-CoV virus. That's going to be mandatory. Making sure that your apartment, your air conditioning unit is tested for actually the SARS-CoV virus, because the virus can get into your air filtration unit, your air conditioning, it can spread it through a whole entire apartment. If it's all central air conditioner unit or assured everybody can be infected, just like what happens in the nursing homes.
Oh, wow, wow, wow. So we have about 5 minutes left in the show. Dr. Rowland, give people steps and tips to keep themselves and their families safe from COVID-19.
Well, my recommendation is one, understanding situational awareness, where you're at, Walmart, Piggly Wiggly, making sure you wear a mask, making sure you protect your hands. If you do touch something, making sure that you wash your hands with the best antiseptic distance, hand sanitizer, antiseptic wash. Making sure, folks, you do not wear your shoes in the house. Making sure if you have a pet that you disinfect your pets with ProGuardian, which is a natural organic product, also the bottom of your shoes. Making sure that your bathroom is controlled, the environment. Making sure that when you flush that toilet, you put down the lid, because that's what the lids are made for, so the feces doesn't become aerolized all over the bathroom. Making sure that you're disinfecting that. Making sure that you're bringing in products, Amazon, whatever the case is. You go to, you black folks like ribs. You go get you some ribs at Piggly Wiggly. You bring that to the house. You make sure you disinfect the outside of that thing. Making sure you have good common sense type of stuff, how to protect yourself. And we also have ProGuardian, where we have put in these big $45,000 biodecontamination units in hospitals here in Las Vegas, Henderson Hospital, Centennial Hospital, where masses of people go through this before they enter the hospital or to the work area, that disinfects them from the top of their head down to the bottom of their shoes. We've taken it to that type of unit, which is a $45,000 unit. We got this thing down to where we even have the personal protection biodecontamination unit, where you can spray your individual cells. And you can find it at SRS and get that for your personal use. Spray yourself, your keyboard. Kids can put it in their backpacks. Spray their books, spray your money, spray your ATM card. If you have that type of common sense, folks, you will be able to function in this environment and do very well.
Wow. How often do you suggest people spray down their homes and their cars and themselves?
Anytime you get in that car, you're out, when you leave your house, which is your secure place, your home, that you've already disinfected your bathroom with the ProGuardian solution, and that nobody in your family has the SARS-CoV virus or the COVID-19 disease. Anytime you go out into the general public, you go out there, you're in that world, you always have the potential to be exposed at a Walmart, a Piggly Wiggly's, Save-Ons, Family Dollar Store. And anytime you get in that environment, you get back in that car, you need to spray your car down with the ProGuardian. You come back to that house, you make sure to spray the bottom of your shoes, making sure that you keep your place from the external environment where the SARS-CoV virus is to your actual home. Because guess what? Viruses don't walk into a building. They don't walk into your house. They have to be carried on there to get there, i.e. somebody coughs and puts it on their sleeves of their clothes. They blow their nose on their hands. They touch your door handle, whatever the case is. So that's the important thing. And understanding that SRS, I'm sorry, is the number one company in the world when it comes to pandemics type of responses. And this is a pandemic type of response that you got to have to best technology based off of science and medicine, and not based off of hoax or feel good. Like Big Mama say, in the morning time, I can't eat no cold grits. My grits got to be hot. That's what you base it off of.
So how can they find you or get in contact with you? Are you on social media? Give them your contact information.
They can find me on social media. I'm at Dr. Lane Rowling at Instagram, and then I'm at Dr. Lane Rowling on Facebook. And then SRS has my contact as the chief science officer if people have questions, and they can always go to you, Dr. J, or even also to you, Pastor Hall, for your people. If you write for a magazine, I look forward to being on the cover of that magazine.
We're going to have to get you there, Doc.
Say again?
We're going to get you there.
Well, I tell you right now, no grits, I don't talk.
Doc, I am an individual who can eat a pot of cheese grits. I mean, a whole pot, 2 eggs and a whole pot of cheese grits.
Well, I tell you, when I get done with this thing, because I'm hungry now, I forget the grits. I'm gonna give me some catfish right now and some Tabasco sauce.
Well, I got you the next time you come to Mississippi, Doc.
Well, Dr. J, it's always a pleasure. I hope this was very informative for you
It
folks.
was.
Teaching people about the epidemiology, where we're going, keeping it simple and real, so people can understand the reality of where we're going. Because at the bottom of the line, at the end of the day, SRS, myself, people that are really invested in this, our bottom line is to try to save people's lives and not worrying about what our reputations are or telling a big lie. And that big lie has killed 200,000 plus people in the United States, injured a lot of other folks.
Well, again, thank you both for being here with us tonight, and I would definitely have both of you back. Thank you, Pastor Hub. Thank you, Dr. Rowland. We'll see you all next week, same time, same place.
Thank you
When
very
it
much.
comes to the best biosecurity and biosafety protocols to help your business thrive during these challenging times of face masks, viruses, and gloves, schools, businesses, sports arenas, hotels, and even churches are turning to America's top COVID-19 experts.
Guarding is a solution that has the ability to change the way we fight COVID-19.
Hi, I'm Socrates Garrett, Chief Operating Officer for SRS Inc., the single source solution for biosecurity protocols. SRS will ensure that your business does not shut down.
What separates SRS from other companies? We understand that if you control your environment, you control the spread of COVID-19.
SRS, the one source solution.
You guys take care. Bye, folks.